Imagine living in a world without toilets, running water, or modern plumbing. The blazing sun overhead, the sands of the Nile beneath your feet, and yet somehow, against all odds, civilization flourished. Ancient Egypt was a world of golden temples, sacred rituals, and pharaohs who commanded the gods themselves. But beneath all that grandeur lay a daily struggle with something far more basic: hygiene. How did people stay clean in a world where soap didn't exist and toilets were a luxury only a few could afford? The truth about ancient Egyptian hygiene will both shock and fascinate you. When we think of ancient Egypt, we picture towering pyramids, lavish tombs, and intricate art. But rarely do we stop to wonder how these people lived day to day. What did they smell like? How did they bathe in a desert climate? How did they deal with something as simple and yet universal as going to the toilet? The reality is that the Egyptians were obsessed with cleanliness, almost to the point of spiritual devotion. Cleanliness wasn't just about comfort, it was about purity, morality, and connection to the divine. To them, being clean was being close to the gods. Let's start with bathing. Unlike in many ancient societies, daily bathing was common practice in Egypt. Most ordinary people didn't have bathrooms in their homes, but they bathed regularly using water from the Nile or public baths built near temples and towns. Water was life. It came from the sacred river, and it cleansed not just the body but also the soul. Archaeological evidence suggests that even small homes had clay jars or stone basins used for washing. The wealthy, of course, had elaborate washing rooms with polished limestone floors, where servants poured cool water scented with lotus oil or herbs over their masters. And because the desert air was so dry, Egyptians learned to moisturize with animal fats mixed with aromatic oils. Their skin gleamed not from sweat, but from care. They didn't have soap in the modern sense, but they made a kind of cleaning paste using a mix of animal fat and natron, the same mineral salt they used in mummification. When mixed with water, natron worked as a natural disinfectant and deodorizer. Think of it as the world's earliest body wash. The smell of natron and aromatic oils filled the air of Egyptian homes and temples alike, and even laborers used it when they could. Archaeologists have found jars of perfumed oil in tombs, showing that scent and cleanliness were not luxuries but essentials of life and death. But what about toilets? Here's where things get complicated. The majority of Egyptians didn't have dedicated bathrooms. The poorest people often used simple pits, dug in the ground outside their homes or near communal areas. They might squat over a hole lined with sand, then cover it afterward. Sand, surprisingly, was an effective absorbent. Some historians believe they used sand or small pieces of pottery as a form of wiping, kind of like how the Romans later used sponges. For those living near the Nile, the river itself sometimes became a natural latrine. It wasn't ideal, but in an age before sewage systems, it was common. For the elite, things were very different. Excavations of noble homes in Amarna and Thebes have revealed limestone or wooden toilet seats built over ceramic or stone jars. These jars were often filled with sand or ashes to absorb waste and reduce odor. Servants would clean them daily, emptying the contents outside the house into designated waste areas. Pharaohs and nobles had privacy screens and attendants who managed the unpleasant business discreetly. In the palaces of the New Kingdom, some toilet rooms were even ventilated through small slits in the walls to reduce smell, a surprisingly clever design for its time. Interestingly, the Egyptians also had a kind of early plumbing, simple yet effective. In temple complexes like Karnak, archaeologists have found stone channels used to drain water from washing areas. Some wealthier homes used terracotta pipes to direct water away, showing an understanding of sanitation that wouldn't become common again until the Romans. These weren't toilets as we know them, but they were the beginning of organized hygiene systems. Cleanliness extended far beyond just washing and toilets. It was a spiritual discipline. Priests, who served as intermediaries between gods and humans, were required to be impeccably clean. They shaved their entire bodies, head, face, even eyebrows and body hair to remove impurities. This was done with copper or bronze razors, and it wasn't about beauty. It was about purity. Before entering the temple, priests would wash several times a day in sacred pools called purification basins. These basins, often located right outside temple walls, were filled with fresh water from the Nile. To touch a god statue or perform a ritual without purification was unthinkable. It would invite divine punishment. Women in ancient Egypt were equally concerned about hygiene. They used natural cosmetics, not only for beauty, but also for health. Kohl, the famous black eyeliner, protected their eyes from sun glare and helped prevent infections caused by desert dust. Perfumes made from lotus, myrrh, and cinnamon were not just for allure, they were antibacterial, protecting the skin and masking unpleasant body odors in the heat. Wealthy women had servants to prepare baths, oils, and cosmetics, while poorer women relied on simpler mixtures made from animal fats, herbs, and crushed minerals. The ancient Egyptians also brushed their teeth, but it wasn't pleasant. Their toothpaste was a gritty powder made from crushed eggshells, ox hooves, pumice, and ashes. The mixture cleaned teeth effectively, but wore down enamel over time. They didn't know about bacteria, but they believed bad breath and tooth decay were caused by evil spirits entering the mouth. To combat this, they chewed fragrant herbs like mint or frankincense. Dental health was so important that even mummies have been found with primitive dental fillings made from linen and resin. In short, their dental hygiene was far ahead of its time, even if their methods were a little rough. Another aspect of hygiene often overlooked is clothing. Egyptians wore light, linen garments made from flax. Linen breathed well, absorbed sweat, and could be washed easily. Laundry was a daily or weekly ritual. People took their clothes to the river, scrubbed them with clay and ash, and beat them against stones to remove dirt. Because of the intense sun, clothes dried quickly, and the bleaching effect of sunlight kept them bright white, a symbol of purity and social respectability. Dirty or tattered clothing was considered shameful, and even commoners tried to appear neat and clean. Hair care was another major concern. The heat made it difficult to manage long hair, so many Egyptians shaved their heads and wore wigs made from human hair or plant fibers. These wigs were cleaned regularly and scented with oils. Shaving wasn't just a fashion statement, it helped prevent lice and disease. The smooth scalp was cool and comfortable, and wearing a wig allowed for both hygiene and style. Men often kept neatly trimmed beards or were completely clean-shaven, depending on fashion and class. Now, while hygiene was advanced for its time, sanitation at the city level was still primitive. Streets in Thebes and Memphis had open drains, and waste was often tossed into the Nile or left in refuse pits outside city walls. This meant that disease was common, even if Egyptians didn't understand the concept of germs. Flies, mosquitoes, and parasites thrived in the warm climate, and some medical papyri mention remedies for intestinal worms and infections. Still, compared to many ancient societies, Egypt's emphasis on bathing, shaving, and cleanliness helped reduce disease spread and improve quality of life. One particularly fascinating discovery is the link between hygiene and medicine in ancient Egypt. Many medical papyri, such as the Ebers papyrus, contain instructions on washing wounds with beer or honey, both natural antiseptics. Doctors prescribed regular washing for fevers and used natron as a disinfectant. They understood in their own way that cleanliness could prevent illness. Temples, which often doubled as healing centers, had specific areas for bathing before rituals of healing were performed. Even the god Thoth, associated with wisdom and medicine, was said to favor those who kept their bodies pure. There's another side to this story too. For the Egyptians, the afterlife was an eternal reflection of earthly life. The same obsession with hygiene extended beyond death. Mummification, their most famous practice, was the ultimate act of purification. The body was cleansed with palm wine, organs were removed and stored separately, and the corpse was anointed with fragrant oils before being wrapped in clean linen. Every step was about preservation, purity, and respect for the soul's journey. Even in death, cleanliness was divine. It's ironic. We often imagine ancient people as dirty or primitive, yet the Egyptians might have been cleaner than some medieval Europeans thousands of years later. Their use of oils, natron, perfumes, and daily washing created a culture of hygiene that feels surprisingly modern. They might not have had flush toilets or scented soap, but they understood the connection between the body, health, and the sacred. But what's even more fascinating is what this says about their worldview. To the Egyptians, the line between physical and spiritual cleanliness didn't exist. Washing your hands wasn't just about removing dirt, it was about removing sin. Keeping your home clean wasn't just about hygiene, it was about harmony with Ma'at, the cosmic order that governed everything. Cleanliness was moral, not just practical. It shaped how they built their homes, how they prayed, how they died, and how they hoped to be remembered. Imagine walking through an Egyptian city 3,000 years ago, the scent of lotus and incense floating through the air, men and women in crisp white linen garments, servants pouring cool water from stone jugs, the faint scrape of a bronze razor as a priest shaves before dawn prayers. Even amid the dust and heat, cleanliness wasn't optional. It was a daily act of devotion. It's easy to romanticize ancient Egypt, but the truth is more human and more relatable. These were people who, like us, cared about comfort, appearance, and dignity. They knew that feeling clean changed how you faced the world. They may not have had plumbing or soap, but they had ritual, discipline, and ingenuity, and that was enough to make them one of the cleanest ancient civilizations ever to exist. And that's the real secret. The ancient Egyptians didn't just build monuments. They built routines that kept them healthy, graceful, and connected to something greater. Their hygiene wasn't just a survival mechanism, it was a way of life, an art form written in water, salt, and sunlight.